Boom, we are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. I was rolling through more of the madness that came from SBF and FTX, and some of the warning signs were clear. Their political affiliations, donations to the Democratic Party, but there were some much more, let me say, dark and sinister things that I started to notice as I went along this process. So clearly, his mother and his father and his brother all have relationships with part of the White House Democratic and finance portions, which is in itself disturbing. And when you see people who effectively ripped off billions of dollars and defrauded customers, but then get these very soft fluff pieces from the New York Times, like, oh, this is a failed philanthropist. He won't be able to help with the COVID pandemic preparedness like he wanted to. Instead of really focusing on the fact that they had effectively routed a backdoor so they wouldn't alert regulators, allegedly, to the fraud that they were carrying out by deceiving customers and sending their money from here to Alameda instead. Now, in the normal world, if you steal like even $10,000 for someone, okay, I'll give you a better example. In Costa Rica where I live, we've got taxes, right? And the taxes in Panama are much cheaper. So you can go buy like 1,000 bottles of Gatorade, and because the taxes are so much cheaper, you end up paying a lot less. So people who have small stores will try to smuggle thousands of bottles of Gatorade across the border so that they can have a better premium on the products that they sell. And those people get pulled over at gunpoint for the thousands of bottles, or the like 100 bottles of Gatorade. But here, this punk ass, curly haired, amphetamine jacked motherfucker is able to sit in his penthouse, wander around, and tweet to Vox and New York Times like he hasn't done anything wrong. And that's clearly not the case. He defrauded, allegedly, right? This is what it looks like. He defrauded all the customers and all the investors through some loopholes that they took advantage of in the back end. But that's not where the tomfuckery stopped. Now, for those of you that know me, you'll know I'm a big fan of the scientific literature, but I'm not a big fan of the profit-driven model that's captured not just the regulatory agencies, but the academics as well. So if you think the majority of what you read in the scientific literature is true, you clearly have never done any deeper research. Most of it is false. And there's a reason for that. It's because highly profitable companies who want to hide unprofitable but functional answers spend a lot of money doing so. Now, during the pandemic, there was something called the Together trial. Now, the Together trial was touted as this huge randomized controlled trial that blocked one of our favorite other Satoshi's creations. Won a Nobel Prize for the damn thing. Check him out, Satoshi Amura. So there was this large study that FTX funded, and it was a fraudulent study. It says it's a randomized placebo-controlled trial, but if you dig through the data, it specifically says, well, we actually didn't administer it on time. We had a very limited threshold to what we could administer. We waited till like day 13, so clearly there's going to be no effects on any of the off-label medicines that you might be testing. And then to knock it off the charts to boot, they decided to go, hey, we actually did unblind it in the middle of the testing by telling everyone what they were getting, and gave them the option to change if they wanted to. That's huge no-nos, huge no-nos in the pharmaceutical or just the trial world. If you want good data, you have to keep the data and the endpoints fluent all the way through, and they changed that. They gave $18 million to this Together trial and said, yay, look at this wonderful trial that proves these other things don't work. Yet this fraudulent trial was pumped through the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the FTX. Now, the fact that Sam isn't in jail and is freely walking around, I think is crystal clear proof for any investigative journalist who wants to look that this was nothing but a CIA or intelligence agency slush fund used for laundering money in and out of multiple countries. The fact that they were a part of the donations going to Ukraine as well, another huge red flag. And all of this combined can be summated into one lesson that I learned that I had not yet taken into account. This is the first time I voted. I voted accidentally with my money. So every time you use a product or you use a business, it's important to remember that your dollars probably vote more powerfully than the ballot box, because most governments now have been totally taken over by corporations. And this is the definition of fascism. When your country collaborates with a multinational corporation to get done what it wants, that's fascism. So we already live under a level of tyranny and fascism that's hard to imagine. They are getting away with things that are unimaginable. History will look back on us with the most tired and sore of eyes for what has taken place here. They're probably crimes that are innumerable in number. And their cracks are starting to show. These things were not super obvious before, but almost any company now, in my opinion, that has relationships with the World Economic Forum or central bank digital currencies or climate change agendas need to be thrown into the garbage. They are the antithesis of what society actually needs, because those are the people who are funding the wrong answers. They're spending enormous amounts of money on proving things that are not true. The tobacco industry perfected this disinformation playbook, harassing doctors and scientists, pushing medical literature through these big journals that is totally fraudulent, and it's right at the forefront again. Anybody who thinks that a central bank digital currency is a safe and effective way to move forward clearly missed the bill. We are at war. We are in the middle of a psychological war, ladies and gentlemen, and the other side has done a really good job of hiding themselves. Don't let them get away with it. There's a reason why Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab can show up at the G20 summit meetings. They're not elected officials from any country. What the fuck are they doing there? You should start asking these questions, because it's tyranny at a level and a psychopathy at a level that is hard for the average individual to ever imagine. It went over my head for a little bit, and I'll never do it again, because every time you spend money at a company, you're voting with your dollars. And I won't vote like that ever again.